I think you saw the Prime Minister on Thursday. What was his complaint?
The meeting on Thursday was with government, as you say, but I should say that it was also attended by representatives from the Union of Jewish Students, the Community Security Trust and the Jewish Chaplaincy, and it was good to have them along there. I wouldn't say that the Prime Minister was making a complaint. I think this was really an opportunity for universities to express the seriousness with which we're taking cases of perceived or reported anti-Semitism on campus, recognising that there has been an increase across the UK in this kind of reporting. But also, and here we did engage very closely with government, to talk about placing an emphasis on de-escalating the current situation. What we manifestly don't want to see is any kind of incidents of the sort of activity that we've seen on US campuses, which is so distressing.
Well, let's come to that in a moment. Let's come to where the line between legitimate protest and freedom of speech and so on comes. But take this for what it's worth from a former president of the National Union of Students. It's every student's right to protest and to say things that are unreasonable up to the point of idiocy, isn't it?
It's a very common phenomenon, and it's certainly one that hasn't been restricted to the past 6 to 9 months. Universities, obviously, as you rightly say, place an emphasis on freedom of expression. That's what we're about. But we're also very much about good debate, the capacity for people to disagree well. And we want to give students those opportunities. But frankly, the challenge that we have at the moment is rightly also balancing that off against unlawful harassment. And clearly, because feelings are running so highly at the moment, there is the potential for that kind of clash of approaches, if you like, to occur. And that's what universities are having to negotiate their way through at the moment. It's not easy to do that at all, as I think everybody recognises. We see this on our streets. We also see it in our universities.
To get some clarity here, I think pretty much everybody's going to agree that harassment, as you say, should be off limits. Any kind of violence should be off limits. But inconvenience and extreme opinions, aren't they part of what this kind of balance should allow?
Yes, of course they are. You know, nobody has the right not to be offended by something that somebody else says. But at the same time, what our Jewish students were reporting, and the Union of Jewish Students were reporting at that meeting, is actions that have made them feel unsafe, insecure, not wanting to be present on their campuses. Now, that is something that universities have to take seriously. It's our duty to create a culture where everybody feels that they can engage. It's about feeling safe, but actually it's about engaging in that kind of reasoned dialogue. What universities have been doing for months and years, and of course well before this terrible time started, is trying to bring those communities together. You mentioned that I'm at St Andrews. This is a university that has staff and students from 140 different countries in 3 square miles in northeast Fife. We see it as our responsibility really to promote that diversity and the sharing of opinions, even if people are going to need to disagree with each other.
Is there a danger here, though, that there's a perception of double standards? And what I mean by that is this, that nobody could disagree with what you've just said. But at the same time, we have a cabinet minister who, in fact, has had to apologise and pay money to an academic for essentially publicly saying that the academic was a supporter of Hamas, that her views are unacceptable, her research shouldn't be funded, and so on. Is there some sense that perhaps our government likes the rules as long as people agree with it?
Well, that sounds like a version of Chomsky's famous statement about the right to freedom of expression only being a right to freedom of expression if it also extends to people that one despises. The trouble I always have with that is the reference to despising people. I think it's about disagreeing with people, actually. I'm not going to comment on the ins and outs of the government's politics in this. What I do think really matters is the responsibility that universities have to try and create the kind of conditions in which people can come together and have dialogue and debate. And you're absolutely right to push me on the fact that that isn't easy. We're having to negotiate our way through this on the ground, and that's a world away from the statements that people who aren't having to negotiate it may want to make.
Can I just ask about one other thing, which is heading your way this week, I think? The government's going to get a report on international student numbers, and it's being said that because of their concerns about overall immigration numbers, they want to reduce the number of international students. Is that an issue for you?
It is a very big issue for us, and thank you for raising it, Trevor. International students are incredibly important to UK culture. They contribute a huge amount to universities, to the economy, to skills and jobs. And we think it would be a tragedy, calamitous not just for institutions, but actually for the UK as a whole, if the government took what would actually be quite unnecessary further action to restrict the number of international students coming into the UK.